got black Baha'is, white Baha'is, Persian Baha'is, Chinese Baha'is, Indian Baha'is, rich Baha'is, in between Baha'is, dirt poor Baha'is, you name it, we got them.
120 years ago, a prophet appeared in Persia and proclaimed a new religion. He said he was the latest messenger of God, sent with a vision that would change the world, a message of peace and unity, under one all-embracing faith, God's kingdom on earth. Today, the Baha'i faith claims to be the fastest-growing new religion in the world, with over 3 million followers. But in the land of its birth, Iran, it is being persecuted.
You never know when or whom they are going to arrest or release or kill. The mullahs or the government do that because they want to frighten the Baha'i community.
They died for the cause which they believe on, and I believe on, and all the Baha'is believe on. So at least I'm happy that, you know, my father was not dying for something, you know, ridiculous. He died for something which he believes and we believe on.
February 1979, the triumph of the Islamic Revolution in Iran. The world watched as the Shah's regime was toppled and a new revolutionary republic was born. Its leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, returned from 16 years in exile to an ecstatic welcome.
His first words were, as expected, forceful and to the point. This is the first step in the final defeat of 50 years of criminal rule. We must cut off the hands of the foreigners who are responsible for our ills and cast out all the roots of the old regime.
Khomeini's words left no doubt about the aim of the revolution, to ensure the supremacy of fundamentalist Islam in every area of Iranian life. When the new Islamic constitution was drafted, religious freedom was granted to all groups with the exception of one, Iran's 300,000 Baha'is, the country's largest religious minority. The Baha'i community had faced repression in Iran since the foundation of their faith, but now there were signs of a new and systematic persecution, apparently authorized and encouraged by the ruling Muslim clergy.
In Iran, the aim of the mullahs is to force the Baha'is to give up their religion so they become Muslims. And their way of doing that is to kill the leaders, to terrorize the average Baha'i by he can't have a bank account, his children can't go to school, their properties have been confiscated, they have been fired from their jobs, all the old people have had their pensions canceled. In fact, insane as it may sound, they've been told they must pay back all the salary they received over the years that they were employed. They have no protection against anything that a mob wants to do to them, and their houses are ransacked regularly and freely by any of their neighbors who are disposed.
Examples of intimidation come in many forms. This secretly shot film shows the destruction of the Baha'is' most holy shrine in Shiraz. These documents are official government dismissal letters. This one tells a Baha'i that he'll be sacked unless he converts to Islam. A 9-year-old school report says his work is excellent, but, as his headmaster notes, since his parents are Baha'is, he's being expelled. Many photographs show cemeteries desecrated, properties and businesses destroyed, Baha'is' homes burned and ransacked. For some, it has meant jail, and worse.
They tied me to a bed, and then they beat the soles on my feet. I can't remember that after how many lashes, but I think maybe after 25 or 30 lashes, I didn't feel anything and I became unconscious. Then again, when I came in, they started beating me again. And when they were beating me, they were asking me to become Muslim. And after that, I remember that they forced me to walk on my injured feet. They do that just because they want you to feel a lot of pain. And they do it to all the prisoners, who are tortured. Some of the other women also were beaten. I remember one of the lady, she was old. She was about 56 years old. And she was beaten on 3 successive days. And she couldn't walk on her feet. And she told me, she herself told me she didn't want to ask the guards, but she had a lot of pain. She felt a lot of pain that she asked the prisoner guards to let her to walk on her knees, but they didn't let her to do that. And they forced her to walk on her feet just to feel a lot of pain.
What happened to her?
She was executed. She was the first lady who was executed in Shiraz.
During the next months, the killings were to increase. On the 18th of June, 1983, 10 Baha'i women were taken from their cells at Shiraz prison and hanged.
These women were very close to me, especially one of those, Shirin, was my closest friend, and all the time we were together. Even they arrested her in our place. And at that time, I was out of the country. When I heard on radio, for a few hours I couldn't do anything. And I felt that I have lost my heart. And I felt empty. But later on, I prayed and I've got that feeling that now I am proud of them, deep in my heart, that they died, but they didn't deny their faith.
The Iranian government insists that no Baha'i is persecuted for religious reasons, but officials are reluctant to be interviewed on the subject. Its embassy in London wouldn't speak on camera, but told us that any evidence of persecution on religious grounds is forged. Torture victims are actors. They said that in Tehran their government had conclusive evidence that Baha'is are political spies and counter-revolutionaries.
Well, let me put it this way. They have had total power. They had all the secret police files. Now they've had it for 6 years. They have ransacked them. If there were a single document justifying their charge that Baha'is were engaged in espionage, you would have seen it published in photostats in the Times or the Guardian or the New York Times.
These pictures smuggled out of Iran show the bodies of Baha'is immediately after execution. Painted on one leg are the words, "Enemy of Islam." At least 200 Baha'is have been killed since the revolution. The leaders are special targets. All save one of these Baha'i assembly members have been executed or have disappeared, presumed dead. Fatollah Ferdowsi was arrested in 1981. His son, Ferhan, was put in jail with him.
Every day they were taking us to another room, which was kind of their headquarters or something, and making us sitting in a floor, blindfolded. Every 10-15 minutes, somebody would come and ask, who is the Baha'is? Because beside us, there were some other prisoner there. And we would raise our hands, and immediately they start beating us by kicking us, slapping, and sometimes by rubber hoses. And that was kind of every day their workout, every day.
Ferhan's father convinced the authorities that his son was needed at the family import business to keep production going. So Ferhan was released, but his father remained in jail.
After I came out, I start to do as much as I can, see if I can release my father. So I start talking to some of our friends. One of them, who were a good friend of Attorney General, I asked him if he can do anything about it. A couple days later, he told me that he had a discussion with him. And his word was that if they were murderer, if they were in a drug dealer or anything else, I could do that for you. But if they are Baha'i, no. And he said, don't mention it any other place. We received a call from Evin prison. All they mentioned that tomorrow to come to such and such office, which normally that's the way which they do. So we knew that they had been executed. Of course, when we went in there, they denied. They said, no, we didn't call. And that's a normal practice for them, just to harassment. But we went with the place which they keep the records of the people who has been executed. And we found out that 3 days before, which they called us, they have been executed, all the members of the assembly, and they buried in some place outside the city.
New York, the United Nations. The UN has become the focal point for increasing international concern over the persecutions. The Baha'is have set up their own office as non-governmental members of the UN. They're involved in a variety of social and economic projects. The most pressing is monitoring and publicizing events in Iran.
Baha'i international community?
Their human rights representative is Gerald Knight.
Well, the situation is that for the last few years there's been intense persecution of the Baha'is, and it reached a peak with a lot of executions. The executions died down for the last several months, but just recently they seem to have begun again. We've had new news of executions just in the last month. We believe that the intention of the authorities is to basically eliminate all traces of the Baha'i faith in the land of its birth. That may or may not mean killing all of them. Probably and hopefully it doesn't mean that, largely because of the international pressure that's been brought to bear.
Since then, we have seen reports of the execution of a further 6 Baha'i leaders. We would urge the Iranian authorities to review their policies and work to ensure that all their citizens can enjoy their human rights, and in particular, the inherent right to life and the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion.
Mr. Chairman, the fundamental question arises here as to why these few civilized Western governments are so eager to push their humanitarian effort through the so-called Baha'i issue against our popular government. What is the significance of this group for the Western community? Mr. Chairman, we believe in addition to the foregoing objectives of the nice and peace-loving Western governments is their desire to help this political group propagate its doctrine wider and gain international recognition. And the most important of all, attack Islam. I reiterate our position that in the Islamic Republic of Iran, freedom, liberty, unity, and territorial integrity of the country are inseparable from one another, the preservation of which is the responsibility of the government and each individual of Iranian nation. No one is penalized for the mere possession of a certain sets of belief, except those who actually engage in acts of espionage, conspiracy, and other activities contrary to the higher interest of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
UN commissions on human rights have repeatedly rejected this explanation and condemned the persecution of Baha'is in Iran as religious. But what is the religious issue?
Well, it's very simple, because the definition of Islam as understood by the fanatics who are in power in Iran is that Baha'is, according to their own interpretation of Sharia law, are apostates who deserve to be killed. That doesn't mean to say that they would go ahead and kill all the Baha'is. They would prefer that, having made an example of the leadership, that the rest would be intimidated into denying their faith or ceasing to practice their faith. And thus, the faith would basically die out. That is their intention. And this is because of theological differences. They believe that Muhammad was the last of the prophets. We believe that Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, was the latest, but not the last, of God's messengers who came to guide mankind. That's the difference.
If theological differences lie behind today's persecutions, how exactly did they arise? The Baha'i faith first appeared in Persia over 100 years ago. At the time, many Persian Muslims felt their religion had become corrupted. Some awaited the promised one who would appear to purify the faith. In the 1840s, a young Persian merchant, calling himself the Bab, announced that he was the promised one. He said Islam and the whole of society must be reformed by new spiritual and social teachings. His message was radical, even militant. Followers must prepare to shed their blood in order to convert the whole world to their cause. The Babi movement was not surprisingly seen as a threat by the authorities. 3,000 followers of the Bab were put to death. often after violent clashes with government troops. The Bab himself was imprisoned, charged with heresy, and in July 1850, shot. The Babi movement began to fade, with most of its leaders dead or sent into exile. But the Bab had said he was the herald of a greater one yet to come. In a Persian prison, one of his followers, Baha'u'llah, had a version that he was the new messenger of God. He said he was the promised one of all religions, the second coming of Christ, the Jewish Lord of hosts, the Mahdi awaited by the Muslims. He preached that all the great religions of the world are true. Their prophets brought different teachings to different ages. Now he, as the latest messenger from God, had a new message: peace and unity under one faith, the Baha'i faith. As Baha'u'llah's message spread, the authorities exiled him further and further away from Persia. He and his family were shunted around the Ottoman Empire, arriving finally in 1868 at the prison city of Akka on the west coast of Palestine. The prison still stands today. It's said Baha'u'llah's followers camped underneath these windows, waiting for a glimpse of their Messiah. Inside his cell, despite the harsh and cramped conditions, Baha'u'llah developed the principles of his new Baha'i religion. He set down a new code of laws and social teachings, which he said would transform mankind. Racial equality, the abolition of poverty, the creation of a universal language, and for the future, a Baha'i world government under one God. He sent letters to the kings and rulers of the earth, calling on them to set up an international tribunal to stop all wars. It's rumored Queen Victoria looked kindly on his message. No one replied. Baha'u'llah spent the last 20 years of his life in a mansion on the outskirts of Akka, having convinced his jailers that he and his teachings weren't a threat. Here he completed his writings, nearly 100 volumes of spiritual and social teachings, providing a foundation for the growth of the religion. He appointed his eldest son, Abdul Baha, to lead the faith. Pilgrims from the West began to visit, attracted by this gentle, mystical religion and by this kindly man with his flowing white beard. Many thought he was Christ returned to earth. The interest was mutual. The West came to Abdul Baha, and in 1911, Abdul Baha decided to go to the West. It was a crucial step, for if the Baha'i faith was to be a world religion, it had to develop beyond its eastern roots. Abdul Baha was the man for the job. He was charismatic but approachable. He simplified and adapted his father's teachings, and he emphasized the principles he knew would be attractive to liberal Westerners: equality for women, no racial discrimination, education for all, an end to war. He spoke of a unified system of belief and government for the whole world, the Baha'i system.
Abdul Baha came to Montreal. He stayed in our house in 1910, 1911, and 12, his voyages to the West. And I saw him when I was a baby, but I don't remember it, unfortunately. And this was a lifelong connection. Then I came here in 1923, and I met this young man who was a successor of his grandfather, Shoghi Effendi. And of course, to me, he was the head of my faith. And when I came here for my third pilgrimage, if you like, in 1937, he told me he was going to marry me. I could have said no, but I didn't want to.
Shoghi Effendi was just 24 when he was made guardian of the faith. He lacked the charisma of his grandfather, but he had the skills needed to bring the faith into the 20th century.
He was an organizer, and quite a brilliant organizer, and he saw the necessity for religion in the modern age to be well administered, to be well organized, and, if you like, routinized. And so he began to emphasize things like the registration of Baha'i assemblies as limited companies in law. He began to see the importance of being legally recognized, that this would give Baha'ism status, and it would give it the, increasingly, the power to do things as an organized body. He got them working in committees, he got them working, consulting together, forming plans, holding conventions. And by doing that, he laid the foundations, very, very strong foundations, for the spread of Baha'ism from late 40s, 50s, and increasingly since then, into other areas of the globe.
One of my colleagues said that one of the most outstanding things about Shoghi Effendi was that he had done 100 years' work in 36 years of his ministry. And he died far too young. He was 60 when he died. And I think he died because he overworked so much. But the point is not that. The point is that everything that he started has fructified, has come to fulfillment so fast in the last 26 years that it's unbelievable. I think you'd be simply delighted.
From its beginnings as an offshoot of Islam, the Baha'i faith has spread throughout the world, first to the West and then to the Third World. But can it truly be called a world religion?
It's not a world religion like Christianity or Islam in the sense of having a great history or a civilization or a culture or a developed theology or all of those things that we associate with a world religion. But it is potentially a world religion in terms of its growth, its membership and its spread.
Crawley, on the outskirts of London. An English family tea party on a summer's afternoon. The Prentice family embraces 4 generations of British Baha'is.
Well, I was a Baptist before a Methodist. More of my life, I was a Baptist. And my mother, she went to Methodist, and I just accompanied her mostly.
I was Church of England for years and years, used to go most religiously to Sunday school. I mean, I was christened, I was confirmed, and I was married, all in Church of England. But, I mean, it didn't mean anything to me.
Before I became a Baha'i, I was quite attracted to Buddhism and Christianity and many of them, and it was a conflict because I didn't know which one to choose. But by becoming a Baha'i, I can accept them all.
You don't have to choose. Tonight the Prentices are taking part in a Baha'i meeting known as a fireside. Some neighbours have been invited along because firesides are the normal way of spreading the faith by gentle persuasion. Baha'is have no clergy and no churches. They're encouraged to discuss their faith, but not to question its essentials.
Do you have many rules and regulations, a lot of do's and don'ts like most religions adhere to have?
Spiritual law.
Baha'i teachings are infallible and its principles are strictly kept. Daily prayer, fasting, no alcohol, gambling or gossiping, no involvement in politics.
We have the particular bounty of actually having the Word of God, the Word of Baha'u'llah, in at least 100 volumes. So we have the actual
Chicago, Illinois. An extraordinary landmark looms over the suburbs of Wilmette. An architectural hybrid, part Taj Mahal, part Gothic cathedral. Carefully designed for peace of mind. It's a place of pilgrimage, a place of meditation, and it's a must for all tourists north of Chicago. But what exactly is it?
This building is a house of worship of the Baha'i faith. It is not a congregational gathering place for Baha'is. It was constructed by Baha'is as a gift to humanity, a place for anyone to come for prayer and meditation, because Baha'is believe that all of the religions come from the one same God, and Baha'is believe that it's God's intention that man in this day achieve the oneness and unity of the human race. Public interest has increased, particularly since the persecution of the Baha'is in Iran. It used to be that people would come to look at the building, ask a couple of questions, thank us, and leave. Now more and more people are really wanting to know about the Baha'i faith, and they're wanting to know about the Baha'i view of the future and what the Baha'i faith has to offer humanity.
The early American Baha'is built their house of worship over a period of 40 years. They had to stop every time they ran out of money. During that time, this tiny wooden office was the national center for the whole of the United States. Today, the Baha'i National Center is a little more impressive.
I think the fact that we're in this building is significant because it shows that we've grown considerably. If you've seen the building where we used to be, which is a very small building at the foot of the House of Worship, and compared to this, it means we have really come a long way. It seems like there's a new spirit abroad, not only here, but around the world. And people are beginning to take notice of the Baha'is.
The Baha'is have learned that getting noticed means getting organized, and organization is something they're taking seriously. Their offices in Chicago control a network of Baha'i groups and activities across the country, setting up conferences and teaching programs, printing and distributing literature, and enrolling new members. They've commandeered today's technology to serve their vision of the future.
Well, according to the Baha'i writings, eventually America is destined to become the spiritual leader of mankind. And this doesn't mean the material. So this is a whole new world for, as far as we are concerned, for Americans.
For American Baha'is, this new world in which they will be spiritual leaders is a future dream. But in Haifa, Israel, it's already under construction.
This is the world headquarters of the Baha'i faith. It's the Baha'i World Center, which encompasses both the administrative and the spiritual center of the Baha'i religion, the Baha'i world community. This particular building houses the chamber of the Universal House of Justice, which is the highest administrative institution of the Baha'i faith.
The style and the surroundings of the world headquarters are grandiose, but so is the dream that inspired them.
I think the Universal House of Justice will play a very great role in developing peace in the future, because we believe that the models that we are developing, these Baha'i societies, on the local and national level, will be used by the world, by the nation, by the peoples, and will be able to offer a working model for a new community.
Baha'is believe the world is on the verge of collapse. But as mankind teeters on the edge, it will cry out for help, and the Baha'is, with their models of communities and world government, will come to the rescue. They're building Noah's Ark for when the flood comes. Computers installed in the basement will soon be capable of instant communication with Baha'i centers around the globe. To make the dream credible, they need as many members as they can get, and recruitment is a priority, especially in the Third World. According to Baha'i figures, membership in India alone has risen from 900 to almost 1 million in 20 years.
We're growing at such a rapid rate in all the particularly third world countries, where Baha'i populations in some countries now constitute already 1% of the population. There are areas where literacy is a problem. So the Baha'is have established already 5 educational and cultural radio stations. We think this is terribly significant.
In Hemingway, South Carolina, the education takes a more subtle form, with an easy blend of popular music and public service messages.
One heart at a time. Radio Baha'i, WLGI.
Radio Baha'i in South Carolina was put here because this is where the largest concentration of Baha'is is in the United States. There are more than 10,000 Baha'is within the greater broadcast region of the radio station.
After 5 years working in the Third World, Kurt Heim has seen how effective radio can be in spreading the word of Baha'u'llah to the poor and uneducated.
We are the 5th Baha'i radio station in the world. Here in North America, we're the first station. There are already stations existing in Latin America. But the purpose of the stations primarily is to serve as a tool to assist people in general. For instance, the elimination of racial prejudice, the establishment of the equality of men and women. These are principles that the radio station serves, which we see as being basically secular, if you will. They derive from spiritual principles of all the religions, but they aren't uniquely Baha'i. They are service to mankind.
Uniting the world one heart at a time. This is Radio Baha'i, WLGI.
Our primary role is to create a sense of what the spirit of the faith is about, so that people, whether they choose to become Baha'is or not, will at least be our friends, and will recognize that the goal and objective of a Baha'i radio station is to serve all people.
It is a Baha'i radio station. It is Radio Baha'i, WLGI, 90.9 on your FM dial. So we very much intend to share the Baha'i message over the radio. But the Baha'i message is can be communicated in many different ways.
Dr. Roy Jones is a happy man. This former black activist of the 60s has just taken over the Louis Gregory Institute, set up 15 years ago as a teaching center to spread the Baha'i message among the local population. Dr. Jones claims 1,700 converts in the last 2 months, and he plans for another 20,000 by next year.
We have experienced back in between 65 and 70 a growth pattern that was phenomenal, in which the Baha'i faith seemed to have appealed to the rural, southern black population. And now in '85 we're experiencing a great growth in the adherence of the Baha'i faith. So again, the message is reaching the population. It's a message that touches hearts, and people in South Carolina are heartfelt people. They're folksy people, they're friendly people. And the message penetrates hearts.
I wouldn't be more happy today if I had $1 million. I wouldn't even know what to do with it. As long as you let me have the faith. I do believe.
At a Baha'i feast, Mary Beckman sings her faith. Old-time gospel tunes are on the program, but new-time Baha'i words provide the message.
That the bomb died for me, and without... To me, being a Baha'i is the most beautiful thing I've ever... I have never even dreamed this could happen. I have a more clear understanding about Jesus Christ, about all the prophets of God, whereas before I only just tuned in on Jesus Christ. That's all I know about. But now I know more about the others.
Mary and many others are obviously enthused about a religion that claims to welcome different styles, cultures, and existing faiths.
I was a Methodist. I was a Baptist too. I feel that the time is right because everybody's searching for something and everybody's looking for something. And I think the Baha'i faith is what they're looking for, because they didn't try everything else. And it hasn't worked. People have been sitting back and they've been waiting. They've been going to churches. They were going to conventions, looking for this spiritual revival, and they haven't found it. And in the Baha'i faith, they found it.
We have not purposefully attempted to convert, using your term, members of church congregations with the intent of upsetting those congregations. I've lived in different parts of the United States, the Northeast, the Midwest, the South, and I think the message here is certainly given more directly. When you got a kind of an army mobilized with unity of thought, unity of purpose, unity of action, it has an effect.
call mass teaching for about 15 years. In fact, this institute was created because of mass teaching. The people who live in this state, in this part of the state, have no other access to finding out about this faith. So it simply means that the Baha'is have to make a special effort, have to give these people a special measure of love to go out and walk these roads and simply tell them that the messenger of God for whom they wait has in fact come.
At first I was a little scared, but after the first two houses, when I saw the people's personalities and characters, I really felt at home around here, and it was very easy.
It's like different for me, because most people don't even want to listen at school. But I mean, now here, people are really interested and they really want to hear about it.
This method of mass teaching may be new to the visiting students from the north, but it's as old as revivalism for the population of the south. There might be nothing disturbing about Baha'is evangelizing door to door if it weren't for a fundamental rule of the faith, that Baha'is are never to proselytize.
One of the things that should be clear is that we do not force this faith on anybody. We welcome people to hear, to understand, to become a part of, the faith. We don't advertise it. It's a people-to-people process.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
All right, how are you?
Good. Hi. We're members of the Baha'i faith, and we believe in the unification of the whole world, and we'd like to share a message with you here today. The first thing I want to show you is that Baha'is live all over the world. God sent different prophets down to mankind to teach him how to live better. He sent Abraham, Krishna.
It is a very direct approach. We believe that people are open to the message here in a way that they're not open in many other places. So that when we mention, the Baha'i faith, that there's a natural curiosity for people to want to know more. So once we mention it, people ask us the questions.
Do you sincerely believe in your heart that all these things that I have told you, do you believe in your heart that this is a message from God for people to live better today?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, by saying this, you're a Baha'i in your heart. And for us to better communicate with each other, we have this declaration card that you can sign. But before doing this, I have to read the bottom statement for you. And if you agree with that, then you can go ahead and sign it. And by doing this, we'll send you free information on the Baha'i faith, and it'll just help us communicate with one another.
I have to study
Okay.
with that. Mm-hmm. I have to study with that.
Okay. Okay. This is what the card says. In signing this card, I declare my belief in Baha'u'llah, the promised one of God. I also recognize the Bab, his forerunner, the man like John the Baptist who foretold of Baha'u'llah, and Abdul Baha, the center of his covenant, his son who kept the Baha'i faith united into one religion. I request enrollment in the Baha'i community with the understanding that Baha'u'llah has established sacred principles, laws, and institutions which I must obey. We're supposed to pray every day and try to obey the laws of Baha'u'llah. Okay, can I...
We'd like to get your name and address.
We'd like to get your name and address.
I ain't gonna join, no. I ain't gonna join. I could study over them. I have to study over that.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. So I ain't gonna sign nothing.
This lady didn't sign, but her neighbor did, and so apparently have many other people in the area. It looks suspiciously like a hard sell.
Hard sell? Well, if the product is one that we believe that can contribute to the betterment of the community, the betterment of mankind, and we certainly have no problems sharing that product. It just seems to happen here differently, and so the approach here is different. The style is different.
Must adapt its style as it meets with different cultures. But what about problems that arise from those central tenets of faith that can't be adapted? Problems that may undermine its credibility as a world religion. This is the Baha'i version of their teaching that all religions are one. It is another
the Baha'i faith that all revealed religions are but different stages of the same faith of God, progressively proclaimed by such educators of humanity as Moses, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, and now the Bab and Baha'u'llah.
What it means, in effect, when you say the oneness of religion, what Baha'is mean is that all religions are one, and they are summed up in the Baha'i religion, and that is the only place that you will find true religion.
The Christian who becomes a Baha'i learns to love and respect Muhammad. I'm sorry to say not what we see from his followers today, but what we see in his life, if we study it, and in his book, the Quran, which is a very wonderful book. The Jew accepts Jesus. The whole bunch of them, so to speak, have to accept the fact that Krishna brought a divine illumination to the world, that Buddha brought a divine message to the world, you see. It's a far broader concept than people realize.
It raises certain problems, obviously, because this means that you have to take a religion like Buddhism, which does not fit in any sense easily into that Judeo-Christian Islamic development. It's quite outside that as a Far Eastern religion, which has doctrines like the there being no God, for example, which is quite diametrically opposed to the Judeo-Christian Islamic doctrines. Now, to cope with that, Baha'is have to develop an explanation of such things in terms of the decadence and corruption of existing religions. Where a given religion disagrees with Baha'i doctrine, the reason is not that that religion is true in a different way. It is because the followers of that religion have corrupted, have distorted the teachings of the original prophets. So in that case, the Buddhists, let us say, have distorted and corrupted the teachings of Buddha. So this becomes the all-purpose explanation for the very great differences that actually do exist between the different major traditions and indeed minor traditions of religion in the world.
Another problem area for the Baha'is could be their prophecy of world peace. Peace is a crucial theme of the faith, and Baha'is are convinced that it's coming very soon, within 15 years.
The implications are enormous. In 15 years, in the lifetime of most of us living today, the messenger of God says that at whatever the cost, whatever the degree of suffering necessary, war will have ceased.
It looks as if we were so pig-headed, so stupid, so selfish, so asleep at the switch, that the only way we are going to get rid of war and go forward into the future and create a world civilization and abolish war is by being pretty well beat up somewhere along the line, you see. Then we will have to do it. And then comes the glorious future, because you get rid of war once and for all.
We have never experienced peace on this planet. We have never known what peace is. Baha'is believe that once peace has been established, that it itself will generate a momentum that can never be reversed. Once people begin to gain the benefits. You know, Abdu'l-Baha, the son of the founder of the faith, speaking at a conference in the United States in 1912, said to them, "You have had war for thousands of years. Why don't you try peace for a change? If you don't like it, you can always go back to war." But obviously, once we have tried peace, we will never go back to war. We will never allow this to occur again.
After the world is at peace, Baha'is believe there will be an inevitable move towards the creation of a new kind of government, the Baha'i world order.
A world federal system will rule the entire planet and exercise unchallengeable authority. A world executive, backed by an international force, will carry out the decisions arrived at and will protect the organic unity of the whole Commonwealth. A world tribunal will adjudicate and deliver its compulsory and final verdict in all and any disputes that may arise between the various elements constituting this universal system. It will be a system in which force is made the servant of justice, whose life is sustained by its universal recognition of one God and its allegiance to one common revelation. Such is the goal towards which humanity, impelled by the unifying forces of life, is moving.
This is the ultimate goal of the Baha'is, is to create a one religion, one state, one order system for the future. It's to be known as the Baha'i World Commonwealth, or the World Order of Baha'u'llah. And they are entirely serious in their intention to create what would effectively be a world superstate, a totalitarian superstate, which would be a one-party system within which there would be very little room, I would think, for serious dissent and divergence from that system.
You are very negative about it. Is there nothing positive at all about it?
I'm negative about it in the sense that I'm negative about all such utopian desires to create ideologically based super systems, because such systems, by their very nature, will find it very difficult to deal with matters of dissent, to disagree with the perfect order, to disagree with the order that God himself has destined should come about, can only be derived from either from mental sickness or from criminal intent. And so it seems to me that anyone who says, I'm not very happy in the utopia, I would rather have a different system, would have to be regarded as either insane or a criminal. So there are great problems with all ideologically based systems when they seek to create single state orders of that kind.
All right, you're an atheist, you are a hippie, or whatever you want to be. Why not? You're free. Can't coerce people. You can entice them, you can educate them, you can reason with them, but we don't believe in bludgeoning people to believe the way we do. That would be the exact antithesis of creating unity in the world, wouldn't it?
It's clear that if the Baha'is want to be taken seriously as a world religion, they have a number of problems to sort out. But for the moment, their present-day problems are rather more pressing.
It looks as though, unfortunately, we are moving now into another phase of the persecution. The executions have started again after being frightened off, I guess, by the publicity and the attention at the Human Rights Commission, and it looks like we're into another dark patch in the immediate future, I'm afraid.
I somehow feel that there is no possibility that the Iranian authorities are going to change their position, their deeply held conviction that they have to eliminate the Baha'is. I don't think they're going to change, and therefore it must continue as long as we have the kind of government that exists in Iran at the moment. I think that things can very easily be forgotten in today's world, and there are so many things, so many problems. The Baha'i persecution in Iran is one example. It's not the most dramatic, but it is a very good example of man's inhumanity to man because it is so clear-cut. It is so obvious. There are no political overtones to it. It is a purely religious question, and as such, I think it merits staying in the center of attention as long as the problem continues. And I think that it will, because I don't think it's going to go away.